The Mongols Motorcycle Club and the Hells Angels have a violent and bitter history, one that has left scars on communities and drawn the attention of law enforcement for decades. But among the many bloody chapters in this rivalry, the events of March 16, 2002, at the Morongo Casino in Cabazon, California, stand out as a moment when sport, gang culture, and public chaos collided most unexpectedly and terrifyingly. So, what really happened that night? Let's find out. It all started with a mixed martial arts event called Ultimate Athlete, held in the parking lot of the Morongo Casino. At the time, the venue was nothing like the polished event center you see today. There was no grand indoor arena, just a large white tent set up to host the fights. That tent is long gone now, erased by renovations, but the chaos that erupted inside it is still talked about to this day. The night's spotlight fight featured Leo P. Pavlushkin versus Rick the Bad Boy Slayton. This wasn't just a typical match between two up-and-coming fighters. Slayton was making his professional debut, but more importantly, he was a full-patch member of the Mongols Motorcycle Club, a San Diego Harley-Davidson employee by day and outlaw biker by night. Slayton's presence alone turned what should have been a local MMA event into something much more dangerous. Slayton's look said it all. Thug life was tattooed across his forehead. His neck bore inked images of Mongol warriors. His entire persona was a walking billboard of rebellion and menace. Law enforcement knew him. The fight fans were curious about him. And his Mongol brothers? They showed up in full force to support him, nearly 250 strong. Inside the tent, over 3,000 spectators, regular fight fans, casino guests, and club members waited in anticipation. The tension in the air was electric. People weren't just there to watch a fight. They were watching a symbol. Slayton represented more than himself. He was the face of the Mongols that night, stepping into the ring with swagger and fury. During the pre-fight promo, Slayton was brash and unapologetic. "I'm here to kick my opponent's ass," he said. "It's going to be bloody, but not my blood, and not his either." His confidence thrilled the crowd. But behind the bold words and body ink was a storm waiting to explode. As the fight began, the energy in the tent surged, but very quickly, things went sideways. Just moments into the match, Slayton delivered a controversial knee that some saw as a low blow. The referee let it slide, but about a minute later, he did it again, this time clearly striking Pavlushkin below the belt. The referee stopped the fight. Chaos began. The Mongols weren't having it. They erupted in protest, shouting at the referee, throwing cups of beer toward the cage, jeering in outrage. But then things got worse. Regular audience members reacting to the Mongols' outburst started throwing beers back, directly at the bikers. It was like lighting a match in a room filled with gasoline. Suddenly, fists were flying. The Mongols started pushing through the crowd, clashing with civilians. Verbal arguments escalated into violent brawls. Chairs were picked up and hurled. People were stomped. Some Mongols drew knives. Security tried to intervene, but they were severely outnumbered. The scene was pandemonium. Rick Slayton, realizing the night was spiraling into a riot, took the microphone and begged his brothers to stop. "Stand down," he pleaded. But it was already too late. The fighting had spilled across the tent. Families fled. Spectators ducked for cover. Others tried to break up fights, only to get caught in the violence. One audience member tossed a beer back at the bikers, perhaps thinking it would stop them. Instead, it fueled the fire. The Mongols surged toward him. Witnesses later described the scene as a battlefield, people screaming, bleeding, crawling to safety. The violence was captured on film, though much of that footage was later seized by prosecutors. Still, some photos made it to the media. What they showed was grim. Mongol members stomping people on the ground, stabbing them, swinging metal chairs. Blood stained the dirt under the tent. In the end, 11 people were seriously injured. One came dangerously close to death. Law enforcement from multiple jurisdictions rushed to the scene. Dozens of officers responded, trying to gain control of the melee. But many of the Mongols had already escaped into the night. The fight between Rick Slayton and Leo Pavlushkin was declared a no contest, and the rest of the evening's fights were canceled. But the story didn't end there. In the months that followed, investigators pieced together what happened. It took over a year to identify the individuals responsible for the worst of the violence. Eventually, 10 Mongol members were arrested, convicted, and sentenced to varying prison terms. Among them was Ernest Alos, also known as Lucifer, a senior figure in the club. Lucifer later wrote a book about his time with the Mongols, including his version of events that night. According to him, he and two other senior members had a meeting with event security before the fight. They came to a secret agreement. If anything happened involving the Mongols, security was not to intervene. Instead, Lucifer and his associates would handle things themselves. It was a dangerous deal, and it backfired spectacularly. After the chaos erupted, Lucifer handed his club vest, his cuts, to another Mongol and slipped into the general audience to watch how law enforcement would respond. He blended into the crowd, an insider observing the fallout of a deal gone wrong. But the Morongo incident wasn't the only act of violence that year. Just 1 month later, in April 2002, the Mongols and Hells Angels clashed again at the Laughlin River Run in Nevada, a popular biker rally. What started as a typical gathering turned into a deadly bloodbath. In a violent casino brawl, 3 men were killed and 12 more were injured. Among the dead was Mongol member Anthony Bronson Barrera, who was stabbed to death. 2 Hells Angels were shot and killed in the chaos. These were not isolated events. They were part of a larger war between 2 of the most powerful outlaw motorcycle gangs in America. At the heart of the conflict was control over territory, reputation, and power. One symbolic spark: the Mongols began wearing California patches on their jackets, a bold declaration that they were staking their claim to turf traditionally ruled by the Hells Angels. To the Angels, it was a direct insult, a declaration of war. The feuds escalated beyond personal grudges and bar fights. They turned into organized, tactical warfare, fueled by pride, revenge, and the need to maintain dominance. Over the years, both clubs have been tied to a long list of crimes: drug trafficking, racketeering, weapons possession, and murder. In 2018, the US government launched a massive federal trial against the Mongols, aiming to strip the club of its name, logo, and patch. This wasn't just about branding. The trial was part of a broader strategy to dismantle the club's identity and disrupt its influence. Prosecutors brought up incidents like the River Run riot and the Morongo brawl as evidence of a pattern of violence. It was a high-stakes attempt to break the Mongols' power. But even then, the violence didn't stop. In 2023, a viral video surfaced from Cabazon, showing Mongols members attacking civilians with weapons. It was another disturbing example of how the club's reach extended far beyond rival biker gangs. Innocent people were now getting caught in the crossfire. So, what's the takeaway? This isn't just some dramatic tale of biker rivalries and tattooed outlaws. The feud between the Mongols and the Hells Angels represents a very real and very dangerous threat, not just to each other, but to public safety. These are organizations with long histories of violent retribution, criminal activity, and loyalty that runs deeper than fear of the law. And despite years of arrests, federal trials, and violent incidents, the question remains, will this ever end? Or are we destined to see more blood spilled over patches, pride, and power? What do you think should be done to prevent future violence between these outlaw motorcycle gangs? Is stronger law enforcement the answer? Or is the problem much deeper than arrests and crackdowns? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more real-life stories that uncover the dark underworld of gang culture, crime, and power struggles, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, and stay tuned for our next deep dive.